The sun once set on a magnificent empire. This was the Han Dynasty. For 400 years, it was a beacon of civilization. Its cities, like the grand capital of Luoyang, were marvels of human ingenuity. Pagodas reached for the heavens. Markets bustled with silks, spices, and ideas from distant lands. The emperor, the son of heaven, ruled with a mandate believed to be divine. But even the most powerful dynasties are subject to the cycles of nature and time. The Han, like a mighty river, had run its course. Its strength was beginning to falter, its waters turning murky with intrigue and rebellion. Slowly, cracks began to appear in this great edifice. The imperial court became a nest of vipers. Eunuchs and ambitious officials wrestled for power, their whispers echoing through the forbidden palace. Out in the vast countryside, the story was one of hardship. Floods and famines ravaged the land, signs that the mandate of heaven was slipping away. Peasants, burdened by crushing taxes and unable to feed their families, grew desperate. Their quiet suffering began to smolder, igniting into the flames of the Yellow Turban Rebellion. The foundations of the empire, once thought unshakable, started to tremble. The fall was not a single event, but a slow, agonizing decay. Warlords, once loyal generals of the Han, saw their opportunity. Out of the ashes of the Han, 3 powerful kingdoms emerged. In the north, the state of Wei, founded by the brilliant and ruthless Cao Tao. In the southwest, the kingdom of Shu Han, led by the virtuous Liu Bei, a man who claimed lineage from the Han emperors. And in the south, the kingdom of Sun Wu, fortified by the natural barrier of the great Yangtze River. This was the legendary Three Kingdoms period, an age of epic battles, cunning strategies, and heroic figures whose names would be sung by poets for 1,000 years. It was a time of constant, brutal warfare. The land itself seemed to sigh under the weight of this conflict. Fields lay fallow, their harvests trampled by marching armies. Villages were abandoned, their inhabitants either fleeing the violence or perishing in it. For the common person, life was a precarious struggle for survival. Loyalty was a matter of life and death. A farmer's allegiance might change with the shifting tides of battle, as one warlord's banner replaced another's over the village gate. The dream was no longer of prosperity, but simply of seeing the next sunrise. A deep longing for peace began to take root in the hearts of the people. Yet this was also an age of extraordinary individuals. Strategists like Zhuge Liang of Shu, whose intelligence was said to be almost supernatural, could seemingly conjure victories from thin air. Warriors like Guan Yu, a paragon of loyalty and martial prowess, became legends in their own lifetimes. These figures were more than just soldiers. They were symbols of the enduring human spirit. Their stories, filled with bravery, sacrifice, and tragedy, were passed down from generation to generation. They became the bedrock of Chinese folklore, a testament to the heights of human character, even in the darkest of times. The rivalry between these 3 kingdoms was a grand and terrible chess game played across the map of China. Alliances were forged and just as quickly broken. Betrayal was a common tool of statecraft. Even as armies clashed and dynasties crumbled, the deeper currents of Chinese civilization flowed on. The chaos of the political world could not extinguish the light of culture. In secluded mountain hermitages and in the quiet courtyards of resilient aristocratic families, the old ways were preserved. The intricate characters of the Chinese script were still painted with grace and precision. The brush of the calligrapher became a symbol not of power, but of persistence. It was a quiet act of defiance against the disorder that raged outside. The family remained the unshakable bedrock of society. Filial piety, the respect for one's elders and ancestors, was a value that transcended the shifting loyalties to warlords and kings. It was within the family unit that traditions were passed down. Children learned the classic poems and the stories of ancient sage kings from their parents and grandparents. This domestic sphere became a sanctuary of stability, a microcosm of the ordered world that everyone longed for. The arts also found a way to flourish, often reflecting the turmoil of the times. Poetry took on a new, more personal and melancholic tone. The 7 sages of the Bamboo Grove, a group of scholars and artists, sought refuge from the treacherous political landscape. They found solace in nature, in wine, and in spontaneous, witty conversation known as Qingtan. Their work expressed a deep disillusionment with the corruption of the world, but also a profound appreciation for the beauty of the natural world and the bonds of friendship. They kept the flame of intellectual inquiry alive. This period also saw remarkable advancements in science and medicine. With constant warfare came a greater understanding of trauma and healing. Amidst the chaos, people sought answers not just from generals, but from philosophers and holy men. The old state philosophy of Confucianism, which had provided the moral framework for the Han Dynasty, seemed to have failed. Its emphasis on loyalty and social harmony rang hollow in a world torn apart by betrayal and war. Yet, it did not disappear. Instead, it retreated into the domain of scholars and families who re-examined its core texts. They found in the teachings of Confucius a timeless wisdom about personal ethics, duty, and the importance of education, preserving it for a future age when society would be ready to rebuild. A new spiritual force was also sweeping across the land. This was Buddhism, which had traveled along the Silk Road from India. It offered a message that resonated deeply with the suffering populace. It spoke of the impermanence of worldly things, the nature of suffering, and the path to enlightenment and release from the cycle of rebirth. This was a profound comfort to those who had lost everything. The Buddha's teachings provided a spiritual solace that the chaos of earthly politics could not touch. It gave people a different kind of hope, one that was not dependent on which warlord won the next battle. Magnificent temples and monasteries began to appear throughout China. They were often built in remote and beautiful natural settings, places of peace far from the fields of war. Here, monks and nuns translated sacred texts, taught disciples, and offered sanctuary to travelers. These monastic communities became vital centers of learning and culture. They commissioned incredible works of art, graceful sculptures, vibrant murals, and towering pagodas that were expressions of profound faith. The Longmen and Yungang grottos, with their thousands of statues carved directly into cliff sides, stand today as monuments to the power of this new faith. The two great philosophies, Confucianism and Buddhism, began a long and intricate dance. They were not always in harmony, but they gradually found ways to coexist and even enrich one another. Buddhism, with its sophisticated metaphysics and focus on inner peace, complemented Confucianism's practical guidance on social order and ethical conduct. A third tradition, Taoism, with its emphasis on harmony with nature, also continued to thrive. After centuries of division, the yearning for unity became an unstoppable force. The first to achieve it was a short-lived but immensely important dynasty, the Sui. Its founder, Emperor Wen, was a brilliant administrator and a devout Buddhist. He used both military might and shrewd political maneuvering to conquer the remaining rival states. He rebuilt the Great Wall and established a new, unified legal code. His most ambitious project was the construction of the Grand Canal, a monumental waterway that linked the fertile rice-growing south with the political centers of the north. It was the artery that would pump lifeblood into a reunified empire. The Sui dynasty, however, ruled with an iron fist. Its grand projects exhausted the people and the treasury, and its second emperor was a tyrant. Rebellion erupted, and the Sui was quickly overthrown. But it had done the hard work of stitching the empire back together. From its ashes rose one of the most glorious dynasties in all of Chinese history, the Tang. The Tang emperors learned from the mistakes of the Sui. They established a strong, centralized government, but ruled with a more benevolent hand. They revitalized the bureaucracy, recruiting officials through a rigorous civil service examination system based on the Confucian classics. The Tang capital, Chang'an, became the most magnificent city on earth. It was a vast, cosmopolitan metropolis, a melting pot of cultures. Its gridded streets were filled with merchants, monks, and emissaries from across Asia and beyond. Persians, Arabs, Japanese, and Koreans walked its avenues. New ideas, new fashions, and new religions flowed into China, which was now supremely confident in its own culture. The Tang dynasty was a golden age of poetry, art, and music. The works of poets like Li Bai and Du Fu captured the spirit of the age with unparalleled beauty and emotional depth. Under the Tang, the institutions that would define Imperial China for the next 1,000 years were perfected. A sophisticated system of ministries managed the affairs of the state. A robust tax system, based on detailed censuses, funded the government and its armies. The legal code was refined, blending the Confucian spirit of compassion with the need for clear, enforceable laws. The Dragon of China had not only reawakened, it was soaring to new heights. The long, painful memory of division was finally replaced by the splendor and stability of a new golden age. The story of China's journey from the chaos of the Three Kingdoms to the glory of the Tang is more than just a history of dynasties and battles. It is a profound testament to the resilience of a civilization. It demonstrates an extraordinary capacity for renewal and regeneration. The political structures of the Han may have collapsed, but the cultural foundations, the written language, the philosophical traditions, the deep-seated value of unity, proved far more durable. They were the bedrock upon which a new imperial edifice could be built, again and again. This cycle of collapse and reunification would become a defining pattern in Chinese history. Yet, it was never a simple repetition. Each period of disunity brought new influences and new ideas. The turmoil following the Han introduced Buddhism, which profoundly reshaped Chinese spirituality and art. It forced a reevaluation of Confucianism, making it more adaptable for the ages to come. The chaos was a crucible, a fiery test that burned away the weaknesses of the old order and forged a stronger, more complex, and more resilient civilization in its place. The longing for unity, for Tianxia or all under heaven, is perhaps the most powerful and persistent theme in this epic story. It is a cultural ideal, born from the memory of the Han and reinforced by the suffering of the long centuries of division. This deep-seated desire for a unified, stable, and prosperous land, governed by a just and wise ruler, became the ultimate political goal. It drove the ambitions of the Sui and Tang emperors and has echoed through the corridors of Chinese history ever since. It is the unbroken thread that connects the past to the present. And so, when we look at the great monuments of this era, the serene Buddhas of Longmen, the Grand Canal, the poems of the Tang, we are not just seeing relics of a distant past. We are witnessing the enduring spirit of a people. We are seeing the proof that even after the darkest night, the sun can rise again. The story of China's reunification is a timeless lesson in human endurance. It shows how a culture, through the preservation of its wisdom and its unyielding hope for order, can survive chaos and continually rediscover its own greatness.